When we're graphing hyperbolas, we can have two different orientations. The first orientation is a horizontal, and that's where the two parabolas that make up the hyperbola open up in a horizontal direction. And we will have horizontal orientation when the x squared term comes first, and we're subtracting the y squared term. Or we can have a vertical orientation, and that's when the parabolas open up and down, and that'll happen when we have y squared comes first and the x squared term is negative. First one we're going to graph is a horizontal orientation. We can tell that this one is horizontal because the x squared term comes first and we're subtracting the y squared term. First you're going to identify your center, and the center comes from the two values subtracted and added inside the parentheses. So we're going to have the opposite of those values, -2, 4. Then we need to identify our a and b values. A comes from the square root of the x squared term denominator, square root of 9, and b comes from the square root of the y term denominator, square root of 16. Then we need to do some work to calculate the c value. The c value equals the square root of a squared plus b squared. You plug in your a and b, take the square root, c equals 5. Then you're going to plot a few points on your graph. The first one you're going to start with is the center. That's the blue coordinate. And then the next 2 points that you need are, you can see them as the red and the purple coordinates. And the way we get those is we add a in the horizontal direction, so we add and subtract 3. And then to get the purple coordinates, we add and subtract 4 from the center coordinate. So then our vertices are going to be the red coordinates because we want the horizontal points. So that's -5, 4 and 1, 4. And then to get the focal points, we add and subtract 5 in the horizontal direction from the center. The coordinates for the focal points are -7, 4 and 3, 4. The next thing we need are the asymptotes. The general equation for the asymptotes are plus or minus a over b, that's the slope, x minus the x coordinate from the center, plus the y coordinate of the center. When we fill in the information, we get plus or minus 4 over 3, parentheses x plus 2, plus 4. To help you graph the asymptotes, I suggest that you make a rectangular box that contains your a and b points, and then your asymptotes are going to cut through the diagonal of this rectangle. Lastly, you need to graph the two parabolas that make up your hyperbola and make sure we're opening up in the horizontal direction. Lastly, make sure that your parabolas do not cross through your asymptotes. The process is the same for the vertical orientation, but the only difference is the way that the hyperbola is going to open up, and it's going to have a vertical orientation. So we start the same by identifying the center, the a, b, and c values. You're going to plot the center, shift 2 in the horizontal direction to find the red coordinates, shift 1 in the vertical direction to find the purple coordinates. Our vertices this time are going to be the purple coordinates because those are the vertical from our center. And then we're going to add and subtract the square root of 5 from our center in the vertical direction to find the focal points. The asymptote for this one is plus or minus 1/2 x minus 1 minus 5. Draw the rectangle, draw your asymptotes, and this one, vertical orientation, is going to open up and down instead of side to side. So there you have the two ways to graph a hyperbola.